she doesn't take this the wrong way. But see, if I'm not going to fear the small, I don't need to fear the great. Because God's no respecter of persons anyway. That's what he's saying. And that's an extreme example. But the person in here that has the least clout in this church, the least influence, the least money, if I don't care what they think while I preach, I shouldn't care what the biggest giver thinks. I shouldn't care what the most popular person thinks. I shouldn't fear the face of man because the judgment is God's. I am the messenger of the Lord of hosts, and I don't care what man says, whether he be rich or poor or whatever he is. It shouldn't matter. I shouldn't respect persons in judgment. Look at Deuteronomy 16:19. Actually, I should never judge, right? No, there's a lot of verses that tell me to judge, and that's one of them. But look at Deuteronomy 16:19. It says, "Thou shalt not wrest judgment." To wrest something means to twist something. Thou shalt not wrest judgment. Thou shalt not respect persons. Isn't that a great? That could be an alternate title for the sermon. Thou shalt not respect persons. Neither take a gift. For a gift doth blind the eyes of the wise and pervert the words of the righteous. You say, what's that about taking a gift? It'd be like if I went to court. And yes, I've been to court. And I've been the defendant. And I'm going to be the defendant in a couple more weeks. But let's say I walk into court. And I say, here, Judge, I have a gift for you. Now, do you think that that's really the right thing to do? For that judge to take the gift? Here's a $200 gift card. I don't want to influence you or anything. That's bribery. And that's what he says when he's talking about taking a gift. Giving gifts to senators. And by the way, it goes on every day in our country. Senators and congressmen are wined and dined by rich people, corrupt businessmen, and that's where the corruption of our government comes from, because the love of money is the root of all evil. And these senators and congressmen are takers of bribes. And they ought to be thrown out of office just for that alone, as well as the other 500 things that I don't like about them. But in 2 Chronicles 19:7, the Bible says in 2 Chronicles 19:7, if you turn there, please, right before the book of Psalms, just go back a few pages, you'll find 2 Chronicles 19:7, "Wherefore now let the fear of the Lord be upon you. Take heed and do it, for there is no iniquity with the Lord our God, nor respect of persons, nor taking of gifts." So God will not take a bribe. God does not respect the persons. God has no iniquity. God has no sin. And it is a sin if you take a bribe. And it is a sin if you have respect to persons. Look at Proverbs 24. Proverbs chapter 24. A few pages to the right in your Bible. Proverbs 24:23. "These things also belong to the wise. It is not good to have respect of persons in judgment." Proverbs 28:21. Proverbs 28:21, "To have respect of persons is not good, for a piece of bread that man will transgress." He's saying somebody who takes bribes, somebody who's a respecter of bread, it won't take much to bribe them. Just give them a Twinkie. You know what I mean? Just a piece of bread. Take them out to dinner. Take them out to dinner, buy them a steak dinner, and they'll give you what they want because they have no integrity. You see, I don't get on the phone and call my congressman and tell them I'm going to buy them a gift if they do what I want. You see, my congressmen shouldn't even really care what I think, to be honest. They really should just be doing what's right. Like if I call them and say, I want babies to be murdered and aborted, they should say, I don't care what you think. That's murder and filthy and vile and disgusting. You can drop dead and hang up the phone. That's what they ought to say if I call them and say it. I want a woman's right to choose. They should say, you have the right to shut up and hang up on the phone with me. And every woman that wants a woman's right to choose has the right to shut up and go home and get married, bear children, guide the house, bake cookies, and shut up. And don't be a whore and you won't have to murder your child, because two wrongs don't make a right. But you see, senators and congressmen ought not take the bread of this world, whether it be the metaphorical bread of money. I think nobody said that in about 30-some years, but money used to be called bread. Hey, how much bread you got? Whoever's not in their head is old. I'm just kidding. But, hey, got some bread. Somebody say it better than me. I'm not saying it right. Somebody use the word bread. Is this coming back? This is a 15-year-old saying it.
It's coming back.
It's coming back. We're bringing it back, all right? No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, the point is, to have respect of person is not good. For a piece of bread, that man will transgress. But we're going to have one last point, one third point. Number one, not race. Number two, not money. Doesn't matter. Number three, the titles and accolades that man will give you. Now let's look at 2 Corinthians chapter 3. We're going to look at a few passages on this. 2 Corinthians chapter 3. The titles and accolades given to man. Now thank God In the United States, it is illegal in the United States for any person to get a title of nobility in the United States. Did you know that? That's an important part of our country. That no one in our country has a title of nobility. We do not live in a two-class society, supposedly. We are all, part of our whole founding was that all men are created equal, are endowed by their Creator by certain inalienable rights. But you see, other countries endow people with titles of nobility. This was big in the Middle Ages. Now, I don't know how much history you study, but in the Middle Ages, in France, for example, a great example. France is the quintessential example of where you had a total class society where you have the clergy on one level, and then you've got the nobility, and all these different titles like dukes and earls and counts and all these different titles of nobility. Today, we have the kind of people in England that are given these titles of nobility, because in England they still have this. They still have a monarchy, and it's a constitutional monarchy. It's a limited monarchy, but they give titles of nobility to people like Elton John. Filthy, sodomite, pervert, disgusting, vile piece of trash, sorry excuse for a human being. Sir Elton John. And by the way, when you go buy your Elton John CD, you know where your money's going? He gives $135 million a year to AIDS funding. Don't discriminate against people with AIDS, and to cure AIDS. I got the cure for AIDS. The Bible has a prescription for the cure for AIDS. Now, you don't think the Bible has all the answers, but did you know the Bible could cure AIDS? Here's the cure for AIDS. Okay, let me look at my prescription here. Let me go into my medicine cabinet here, okay? And I'm going to look under L. Leviticus 20:13. Whosoever lieth with a mankind as he lieth with a woman, even both of them have committed an abomination, they shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. Now, that's the cure for AIDS. It's found in Leviticus 20:13. If a man also lie with mankind, as he lieth with a woman, I'm just repeating in case you didn't get it the first time. Even both of them have committed an abomination, they shall surely be put to death, their blood shall be upon them. There's your cure for AIDS. AIDS is cured. Elton John, your $135 million is, we don't need it. And that's why you don't need to buy an Elton John CD. Sir Paul McCartney. Is that what you have to be, just some kind of a communist rock star? Or some kind of a filthy pervert to get these titles of nobility? But thank God in America we don't give out titles of nobility. Thank God that in 1776, when the Declaration of Independence was penned, and when the Constitution was penned in 1787, they said, no titles of nobility. And no government official of the United States is allowed to take any title from another country. No American citizen is allowed to take titles of nobility from another country. You see, we are a sovereign nation of the people, by the people, for the people, and we're all supposed to be, even the president's not supposed to be above the law. That's what separates us from other totalitarian countries. You see, our president, if he lies in court, he should be punished the same way I'd be punished if I lied in court. See, if I lied in court, they'd throw the book at me. But if Bill Clinton lies in court, so what? Or whatever. All the other crimes, he's not the only criminal. They're all criminals. But that's a whole other sermon. In fact, I think I'll write that down to preach that sometime. But anyway, in 2 Corinthians 3:1, I love what he says here. This is a great start to a chapter. Do we begin again to commend ourselves? Did you hear that? Do we begin again to commend ourselves? Now, isn't it silly when a person commends themselves? Stop and think about this. This is what's wrong with politicians today. Did you know that when our country was founded, people didn't even run for office? George Washington didn't run for president. You didn't even run. When Thomas Jefferson won the presidency, he never even announced that he was a candidate. Literally. Study the history. I mean, it was just, they were chosen, and it was considered dishonorable to go out and toot your own horn and try to say how wonderful you are. Now, people would announce their candidacy in many cases, but they wouldn't go around just telling everybody how great I am. And when I hear a politician tooting their own horn, this is what I think of. Do we begin again to commend ourselves? And, the politicians that I like, which are very few, are the ones who get up and say, hey, this is what's right and wrong. These are the issues. This is the right thing. This is what we believe. They don't get up and say, I'm this, and I'm going to do this, I'm this, all this stuff. But that's 99% of politicians. Is they get up and tell you how wonderful they are. But wait a minute, am I a politician? Why is that a hard question? Am I a politician? No. You see, Baptist pastors should not be politicians. And yet, sometimes we begin to commend ourselves. You know what a commend means? Basically, to lavish myself with titles and to give all my different achievements or whatever, right? Just tell you how wonderful I am. That's what a commendation is. He says, or need we, as some others. So there are some people who need this. Or need we, as some others, epistles of commendation to you, or letters of commendation from you? He's basically saying, do I need some piece of paper of somebody wrote some letter, like to prove that I have the right to preach or that I have the right to be the pastor? Like I need some letter of commendation from you or to you or by you? He's like, I know some people need that. But he's like, I don't need that, because he said in verse 2, ye are our epistle, written in our hearts, known and read of all men. For as much as ye are manifestly declared to be the epistle of Christ, ministered by us, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not in tables of stone, but in fleshy tables of the heart. And such trust have we through Christ to Godward, not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think anything as of ourselves, but our sufficiency is of God, who also hath made us able ministers of the New Testament, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter killeth, but the Spirit giveth life. Let me explain something to you guys. You young guys who want to pastor a church someday or be a preacher someday, guess what you don't need? A piece of paper to put on the wall in a frame. What you need is for God to give you the power of God to go out and win souls, and those people will be your epistle of commendation. That's what he said right here. He said, God is the one who hath made us able ministers of the New Testament, in verse 6. God's the one that made me an able minister of the New Testament. Not some man. Not some piece of paper. Like for the 3 years and 11 months and 29 days until you get that degree, in your 4-year program or whatever, you're not able. But the moment you walk across that platform, you get this piece of paper, all of a sudden, I can preach now. I got this. I know how to preach now. Now I'm filled with the Spirit of God. I'm a big kid. Look what I can do. I've got a piece of paper on the wall too. And it's really more silly than the pull-ups commercial. These people who think that some little wimp, some effeminate, queer little sissy of a boy goes to a bunch of classes in some Bible college somewhere and gets a piece of paper, all of a sudden he's ready to just take on the devil and the forces of hell and start a church and preach with power. No, spineless wimps and pansies have no business pastoring a church, because let me tell you something, when you pastor a church, there are many adversaries. You're under attack every week. People don't like you. They attack you. They lie about you. They try to pressure you. They try to get you to change. They try to get you to back down. They attack you. They mail you filthy things in the mail. They lie about you. They curse you. They call you on the phone and threaten you. They do horrible things. But let me tell you something. If God has called you to preach, God will enable you to preach and to be a minister of the New Testament. But some classroom is not going to enable you to do that. How about this? The local church that Jesus died for and shed his blood for. That's the pillar and ground of the truth. That's where you ought to be trained. And I guarantee you that anybody will get more training sitting in this church and then going out soul winning and actually getting people saved and winning souls to Christ than they'll ever get in some seminary, whatever it is. Than they'll ever get from some piece of paper. You know what's hilarious? And here's the thing that's hilarious. I went to Bible college. And in my senior year, I'd already ordered my cap and gown. I'd already sat down with the guy. Okay, you have all the credits. You just have to finish up, these last classes and whatever. You're in your senior year. Here's what you got to do, blah, blah, blah. I left Bible college, and I quit because of the heresy and perversion that was coming across the pulpit. At the time, a lot of people questioned me, and then later they apologized and said, good, I see why you left. Now that it's coming out, some of the things that were being preached over there. And now it's kind of like I told you so. But the thing that's funny about it is this. I went to Bible college, and I was in my senior year, which means that I'd done more than 3 years of the material.